So Joseph Sciambra, if you don't know, he was molested by a priest when he was younger. He was a Catholic. He's a Russian Orthodox now. He tried to remain a Catholic, but he came out as like one of like these like and the thing is he's a homosexual, okay? But he's
Of course.
yeah, but the thing is he's well, he was molested by a priest when he was younger, and then he did his whole gay lifestyle stuff, but he's a revert, right? So now he's for like the past like 10, 15 years he's been taking his Catholicism very seriously, and
Okay.
he came out right. He was talking he back in 2017, 2018, he got some media time talking about his experiences because that's when all the clergy sex abuse stuff was happening and the Cardinal McCarrick started
But
coming out.
he's not like practicing
No,
fornication.
no, 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 no.
Okay.
That's what I'm
Okay.
saying. Like
He's
he's
okay.
one of like
Gotcha.
yeah.
He's
And this
coming out
priest
about his past.
and this priest over here, he used to be a Navy chaplain, and he also used to teach in Rome. Okay, that's all you guys need to know for this, and we can talk about more about their history. But one second, just want to make sure that this is all right. Hold on one sec.
No.
Yeah, no, he's Russian Orthodox now. He converted to
Oh,
Russian
okay.
Orthodoxy like 2 years ago because he just got sick and tired of all of the
Right.
cover up still that's happening in the church because nothing has changed since 2017 18. Like McCarrick was, how he got laicized and defrocked, but and he was basically sitting in a prison cell, or he wasn't sitting in a prison cell. He was waiting for trial, and the judge in McCarrick's case, they dismissed the so he was convicted, but he wasn't sentenced. They said that he was too old to be sentenced to jail.
Of
That's
Pope
what I was saying because you
Francis.
caught us in the middle of transitioning.
Real
That's why I made
quick
a
before
comment.
I
Different topic.
bring Gene in, is it in 2012? I spent the summer in Rome, and little did I know that would be uh, Pope Benedict the 15th, right, Gene? The
Yeah,
15th,
16.
16th. I'm sorry, Pope Benedict the 16th last year of his pontificate, and that summer I went to quite a few events that he was in. Went to a papal audience in that, what's that horrible hall, Paul the Sixth?
Yes, right to the left of St. Peter's.
Yeah, yeah, that ugly place. And then I think he always did a Wednesday. Was it a Wednesday audience that they do?
Yes, it was a Wednesday audience.
Yeah, and I went to those, and I also went to the Corpus Christi procession, which is quite a long ceremony. And I actually was very close to Pope Benedict that throughout that day, and he looked great. I was with a friend of mine that day, and we were both talking about how well and how healthy he looked, and how he made it through that whole ceremony, which was pretty rigorous because I did it and I was tired. But I was shocked a few months later that he resigned, citing health. So that's my little introduction.
Yeah.
What did you think, Gene, when you first heard that Pope Benedict had resigned? Because it seemed like it kind of came out of nowhere.
Well, my take on Benedict, uh, if you look at what happened from the broader historical perspective, okay, uh, first of all, you see that when John Paul II died, when the conclave was held, uh, the two running candidates for the papacy were Bergoglio
Really?
and Benedict.
Wow.
And you see, Bergoglio had the backing of the San Gallen mafia. Okay. And remember, these were people like McCarrick, who, remember, he lived in Switzerland for a while,
Really?
because he could speak French. This I know this too because one of the victims whom he abused at his beach house recounts uh, 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 McCarrick speaking French with him. I guess McCarrick wanted to show off that he could speak French, and his victim spoke French, uh, Polish, Russian, and Hungarian. Not Hungarian, I'm sorry, Ukrainian.
Hmm.
So McCarrick, having studied in Switzerland, was part of the San Gallen Mafia, the gay group, okay, that had been lobbying for themselves. And so at the election, when Benedict won, they were very upset because they thought they were going to get Bergoglio in there, okay? But they failed. And it reminds me almost when Hillary Clinton lost to Trump.
Yeah.
And what happened? What happened when Hillary lost and Trump was elected? How many times did the Democrats try to get Trump out of there?
A lot.
How many
Not
impeachments
my
and so forth, right?
president.
3
So you have to understand,
or 2. Was it 2 or 3?
right, too.
2.
So what you have to understand is that once Benedict won, the San Gallen Mafia was still determined
Wow.
to get rid of him. Okay, and so it was a matter of finding ways to pressure this guy, to
Grudgin
resign
Comanche.
and to go away or to die. For example,
Is the volume loud enough, or is it low?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Grudgin's here too.
most people don't
It's
know.
loud enough. It's loud enough.
John Paul I, I believe, was
It's
not
all the
murdered.
way up.
Like the English writer tried to assert in his book that John Paul I, who reigned only 33 days, was murdered. Well, but on the other hand, he did have a heart problem, and what they did do, the cardinals. These were the cardinals who were running the church at the end of the life of Paul VI, because he was very sick. And the same thing happened at the end of the life of John Paul II. When you're older, you have health problems and so forth. They're used to, other cardinals are used to stepping up and running the church. Well, when they did that under Paul VI, these guys were used to running the church. So they wanted, when they held their election, they wanted someone who they felt that they could control. Who would be like the figure they could put out in front and give the blessing and all this stuff, and just move him along, right? And so what happened was they elected Albino Luciani from Venice, the Patriarch of Venice. And when Albino was elected, when he started looking into the Vatican finances and so forth, they got really nervous because they were embezzling all this money and so forth. Okay, so they wanted to get rid of this guy, but they can't. He's too young to retire, right? But I have it from Swiss guards who were listening in on some of these things, because when you're a guard, you could, if there's a shouting match going on, you're privy to it, right? And so there are guards who would say that they didn't murder him, but they put so much stress and pressure and isolation on this guy,
Killed him.
that it just killed him. So you see, they couldn't. I don't think they could. They didn't try that tactic with Benedict, but they tried the other route. They still pressured him, and basically they got him to resign. So once he resigned, then it was easy to get Bergoglio in there.
Yeah.
And so when Bergoglio was elected, when Benedict resigned, now they're in place. And if you look too, what was one of the first things that Francis did after his election? He went down and he told Cardinal Gerhard Müller, who was in charge of what was called then the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, to stop investigating Cardinal Cormac Murphy O'Connor in England for all his abuse. And why did Francis want Müller to bury the investigation of this gay, predator cardinal? Because he was also part of the San Gallen Mafia that got him elected.
Wow.
So you have to understand. So when you ask the question, about, these Benedict and the elections and so forth, I was back in Rome. I was working as a correspondent at the time when John Paul I was elected. I went back when John Paul II was elected and participated in his first mass, only because I knew him.
Wow.
But he was a cardinal. So, the information I'm sharing with you, you're probably not going to get from a lot of other people because they don't have that inside, track.
So what you're kind of describing is like a deep state in the Vatican.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And so it still exists.
Sure.
It still exists,
Of course.
And so I mean, when you consider that over 80% of the people that work in the Vatican are gay, and we're talking not just the cardinals, we're talking the Pope, the cardinals, the bishops, and most of the priests.
I got it.
Do you guys get this?
Yeah.
So this priest, right?
80%.
He worked at the Vatican. So he's a Navy chaplain. He retired as a Navy chaplain in America. Okay, but this guy went to school in Europe. He knows, like, he was there during John Paul I. You know what I mean? And he worked there at the Vatican. And he's saying there's fucking 80% of everybody at the Vatican are fucking gay. including cardinals, including some of the popes. You get this? Like
Nah, bro.
I'm not being hyperbolic. You know what I
Nah,
mean?
If I
bro.
could,
Nah,
I think it
bro.
goes back. I think it's because of the infiltration with Freemasons. That's my opinion. Why?
It's
They
because
have
these
in
niggas
their
want
club.
to be gay, bro. That's all it
That's
is.
part of it,
Because
but
But
it
the
actually goes
majority
back
of people,
further than this. It goes all the way back to the 1000s. Like there's a lot of saints like they'll bring it up like Peter Damian like
like heathenry
yeah.
type stuff.
That's why like I wrote like the Book of Gomorrah. This has been a problem in the church for quite a while.
Closeted.
Okay.
And they have
now if I could ask
they
a
want to
question,
protect.
Each
They
other.
want to
that's
cover that.
just
That's
in the
why
Vatican,
when
but what about throughout the world?
journalist from Brazil asked the Pope on his first flight from Rio
Okay.
back to the Vatican
Oh, we'll
about
get to that.
Costa Rica, what did he say? He said, "Oh no,
To
he
hell with
was
the world. It just
he was
shouldn't be in the
investigated
Vatican.
for having that Swiss boyfriend who was
I agree, it shouldn't be in the
in
Vatican.
Uruguay. He was investigated for
They
having
need to
sex with the
anathematize
prostitute
themselves.
in
I
the
wanna-
elevator. He
I
was
wanna get to that.
investigated, and he was
You're
found
having too
innocent.
much fun with
That was
this
all a
Joel
lie.
Seeker.
I
I
have
wanna
a
get to that.
question
Let
for
me
the Christians.
share my screen
If
Wait.
here.
somebody's willing to
Can you see this?
entertain the
I
question.
can see it.
We're in the
Okay,
middle
so
of
this
something
is the
right now.
famous
Wait a little
shot
bit.
of
I need to
Bergoglio
like
in the
have
streetcar in
Yeah,
Argentina.
wait for
I was a bit
Abysmal
I didn't
suspicious
even
when
by
this
the way.
when this was the narrative they were trying to form about him, that he was like the people's pope, and he hung out with the sheep and all that stuff, So
It's a con job. I mean, they what most people don't realize is that Bergoglio, when he was the Archbishop of Buenos Aires, had a lot of security, and the reason is because he had so many death threats because of all the abuse that he covered up. So if one were to watch Sex Abuse in the Church's Code of Silence by Martin Boudot, the French investigative journalist who documents, all the abuse that Bergoglio covered up, you could understand why so many of those victims or members of their families, were very, very, very upset. I mean, if you had a son who was abused by a priest who later committed suicide,
yeah,
and that Bergoglio in this picture, covered up your son's abuse and wouldn't even listen, wouldn't even grant you an audience, wouldn't even allow you to talk to him about this, you might have it in for this guy.
yeah.
So that's why Bergoglio never went back to this day,
I was
will
gonna say,
never go back to Argentina. There are too many death threats against him. That's why the Swiss guards in the Vatican are not trained just to look out for terrorists from the Islamic world. They're more worried about some sex abuse victim or family member trying to knock him off.
yeah. I was gonna say in the 12 years of his pontificate, he never returned to his
Oh,
home
he won't. He won't.
country, which is interesting when you contrast that with John Paul II, whose first
And Benedict also.
foreign trip was to Poland, and at that time it wasn't that easy of a feat because Poland was a Soviet bloc country. So, and it's very curious that he's never went back.
Profound.
No, he won't, and he's afraid of being knocked off,
Yeah.
or because he knows how many people know in Argentina, his relationships and his sexual relationships too. Not only what he did with the Jesuit novices in places like Cordoba,
Yeah.
but they know too how he groomed people like Sanqueta, who he made a bishop. I mean, look, the same things happened in this country. You're in San Francisco, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, here's my theory. Are you ready?
Not San Fran.
sure.
Just as Bergoglio groomed and abused Zanchetta, whom he made a bishop, Archbishop John Quinn did the same thing to one Robert McElroy,
Like Masonic
whom
or
he
something?
ordained and then later made him his secretary, and then later made him his vicar general. And before Quinn retired, he made sure that McElroy was made the auxiliary bishop of San Francisco.
Now here's the famous shot of him on the loggia in 2013 at his election. What I always found interesting about this picture was this person right here looking like a Seth Lord from Star Wars. Do you know who that is, Gene?
I can't. My vision's not good enough to check him out.
That is Daniels.
Ah,
Do you know? And you know about him, don't you?
you probably know about it better than I do. I know more the. I know most of the the cardinals in this country because I studied with most of them.
Yeah, Cardinal Daniels was accused of the worst sort of cover-up in his home country. I think he was a Belgian cardinal, and it was very interesting. And I mean, by 2013, at the election of Pope Francis, he was pretty much disgraced. But it was very bizarre that there he showed up at his election, and some people actually did recognize that, and they saw it as a foreboding of some pretty bad things to come. That this guy showed up on. I'm googling him right here. Here's Cardinal Daniels. He was a Belgian archbishop. He died in 2019. But
I'm sure he was part of the St. Gallen Mafia.
Yeah, people
along with McCarrick.
2013. Daniels was considered papal before the 2013 conclave in which he participated. Naturally, he also participated in the cardinal's pre-conclave discussions. The conclave elected Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio.
I'm surprised that McCarrick's not next to Jorge Bergoglio there.
There was
we have to understand too, when Jorge was elected in 2013, already by then, Benedict had already put sanctions on McCarrick.
Let's see. This is from 2008. This is from 2010. Cardinal Godfrey Daniels. Audio recordings leaked to the Belgian media this weekend revealed Belgium's Cardinal Godfrey Daniels urging a sex abuse victim not to make public that his abuser was his uncle, Bishop Roger of Vangeliu, of Bruges, Belgium. The recording showed Daniels pressuring the young man not to force Vangelway to resign. Vangel eventually did resign April 23rd. He had served as Bishop Bruges for more than 25 years. So, he was as dirty as could be, and that was in 2010. But then in 2013, he shows up on the loggias. It was a bad sign. I mean, the ancient Romans believed in these signs, and that was a bad one. Here's another bad sign. This is 2013. From the year of his election, Pope's eyes and ears in Vatican Bank had string of homosexual affairs. Monsignor Battista Riga.
Yes, I wrote about him extensively. I mean, there was an excellent article in 1 Peter 5 about him documenting.
I read it.
Yeah, how he had the live-in boyfriend in Uruguay. Again, the sex got caught in the sex in an elevator with a gay prostitute, and then was beaten up in a gay cruising ground. But of course, what most people don't know, Joseph.
But I'm sorry to interrupt you. But wasn't some of the reporting I read, wasn't that prostitute a minor as well?
Oh yes. I mean, this is nothing unusual. I mean, this is happening right now today. I mean, can you imagine how many the poor, illegal immigrants that have entered our country today are being pimped and used for sex? I mean, you have a record of sex abuse of foreigners by Catholic bishops and priests. Look at Lucas in Omaha when he was the rector of the prep school in.
You guys getting this?
Yeah.
Like Pope Francis surrounds himself, right, and elevates people, right, that are known sexual predators, that they themselves are engaged in homosexual prostitution of minors from foreign countries. Like this guy right here in this photo, Monsignor Rica, he was caught for prostitution of a minor.
Dude, flipping the title Monsignor and that accusation, because Monsignor is a very, it's an honorable title. And to have that be on that person, it's flipping awful.
If I could also just point out, it also makes sense why Pope Father James Martin. If Pope Francis surrounds himself with gay people, then it would make sense that he wouldn't remove them from the church.
In St. Louis, how he sexually abused a 17-year-old Hispanic seminarian who only recently, just within the last year, has brought suit against him. Or how that same Lucas paid Tomas Munoz, another Hispanic, to $300 to participate in the gay orgy in his Episcopal residence, where Munoz, testified witnessing him being sodomized by Father Peter Harmon. So no, I mean these cases. But again, most people in the United States don't know what's really going on because the media, Joseph, covers this up. When the Pope was asked about his relationship with Batista Rica, because the reporter from Brazil knew that Francis and Rica were pretty close, and so when she asked him that question, what did AP reporter Nicole Winfield say about it? Oh, she totally twisted it around and made it sound as if the Brazilian reporter was asking about his Rica's sexual orientation.
I want to
And
get to that.
that's why Winfield said, well, and the Pope said, who am I to judge? As if it was a question of judging his orientation. We don't judge people's orientation. The question had nothing to do about his orientation, it had everything to do about his behavior. But again, Winfield and the Associated Press, the same Associated Press that President Trump recently said he doesn't want in his Oval Office. You know, that same Associated Press totally twisted that around, which was dealing with behavior to make it look as if it's only about his harmless homosexual orientation.
Right. Oracle. And this is what brings me to that. If someone is gay and seeks the Lord with goodwill, who am I to judge? And this is Person of the Year, The Advocate, which is a famous American gay magazine for 2013. And it was because of that quote that you just described when he was asked about this predator priest. And it's pretty sadistic and disgusting.
Well, it's very bad journalism. It's fraud.
Only thing in the church infallible is the Holy Spirit. That's all I got.
I really have no respect for Nicole Winfield and the Associated Press that to this date have yet, because can you imagine all the harm that they caused? And they tried to make him look, he's so compassionate, so sensitive. Hold it. Do you think Jesus Christ would say, you know, to the woman caught in adultery, oh, that's okay. You know, who am I to judge you for, you know? No, he didn't say. He said, go in peace and avoid this sin. He acknowledged that what she was doing is adultery is a sin. They will not acknowledge that what the behavior that Batista Rica was involved in, and the same behavior that Francis was involved in with Jesuits in Argentina, was sinful, was wrong, was selfish.
Well, Pope Francis is sensitive and compassionate to, you know, sexual predators, and he was very willing to kind of ride this narrative. He didn't push back against it in any way, shape, or form. So,
well, he should have said, "Who am I to judge?" Because I'm the same way. I've done the same thing with young men and boys that Rick is doing. Yeah. I can't judge him because I'm no better than he is.
Yeah. Oh, I had a couple of things out of order here. So here's the Sith Lord I was talking about, and then here's the article: head of church in Belgium told bishop's abuse victim to keep quiet from 2010. This guy should have got nowhere near that lotion. I mean, after this, how was he up there? You know.
Well, it's just like everyone else. Look at Mahoney. Look at. I mean,
oh God.
Look at McElroy. He's going to become on March the 11th. On March the 11th, he's going to be installed as the Cardinal Archbishop of Washington, D.C.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interestingly, following in the footsteps of
Gregory,
Worrell,
and Gregory. The sleaze, the three sleaze.
I mean, all three of them are sleaze bags. Yeah.
Well, McElroy will just slide right in there. It's already grooved.
Oh, he's the perfect replacement because he's as bad, if not worse, than they are.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been people who have all kind of dirt on him in Hillcrest, in San Diego, in the gay district.
It's so gross.
I'm to start my Hitman.
Oh, I've got a picture of McElroy. Come later. So in 2014, I've got a timeline here. Francis created the Pontifical Council for the Protection of Minors, and one of the people on that was a layperson, or is a layperson, a survivor himself, Juan Carlos Cruz. But Juan Carlos Cruz is an LGBT activist. Here he is with, I can't remember, Karen Jean-Pierre at a GLAAD Awards ceremony. No conflict of interest there. Here's Juan Carlos Cruz. Today is a great day in the USA. Thanks to all who fought for same-sex marriage to be a reality. Love wins. And he's on the Pontifical Council for the Protection of Minors.
Now, is he from Argentina?
I think he was from Chile or Peru. I can't recall.
Where,
Here we've got
when we dropping, boys?
2015, the following year. This is the Juan Barros problem in Chile. Hundreds in Chile tried to stop Bishop Barros's installation. You want to watch a blank show, is watch the video of Catholics. It's insane. Trying to stop this guy from being installed as bishop. Protesters in southern Chile have tried to stop the installation of Catholic bishop, accusing him of covering up a priest's sexual abuse of young boys. 2015. This will come back to haunt Pope Francis.
If you could do me a favor and send me a copy of that, because I think the people in Washington, D.C. next week should do the same thing with McElroy.
2 thumbs up.
Especially after McElroy covered up the satanic ritual abuse of Rachel Mastrogiacomo.
Oh my God. Yeah, I will send it to you.
I feel like this is Freemasons.
Pope's defense of Chilean bishop in sex abuse
Definitely
scandal causes outrage.
No, it's just
Bishop Juan
principalities
Barros,
and dark forces in high
Madrid
places.
Center during a mass celebrated by
It's not
Pope
the church
Francis.
itself.
The
It's
Pope said there was
infiltrators.
not one single piece of evidence that Bishop Barros
It's
had
the
protected a
people.
pedophile priest.
In the church.
Could you
regardless
send me
of
that
their
one also? I'm going to
affiliation.
send that to Del Borstein of the Washington Post and to Elizabeth Diaz of the New York Times.
Okay.
So this
And,
trail
and I,
secret,
I,
let's say
I
Satan
challenge them
infiltrates your church.
to cover the
Does something like
installation
that,
of
would you blame the
McElroy
church
and
itself?
report the same thing about
It's
McElroy
the
in
people.
Washington.
It's
See,
it's
they'll
my
report
big
about this in other
pastor.
countries. They will not talk about
There's
how people
this
like Rachel
Catholic
Mastrogiacomo and Lisa Royce and all these other American victims who were abused.
Unfortunately, this is the reality. This is the thing.
How
Yeah,
their
I mean,
abuse is being
why
covered.
bad?
With or without Freemasonry, bro. With or without Freemasonry.
Yeah, with or without
them.
Freemason. Yep, it's them.
them.
Yep.
Like, deal with it, bro.
Correct.
No, it's not
It's
the
them.
church because the church.
I'm not
Well,
trying to say.
No.
Address
But the point that I'm trying to get across is that it's not just since Vatican II. It's ever been. It's there is an argument that's out there. It says ever since celibacy, right? It's celibacy itself has allowed gay people to run under the cover of the church and
That's the
become.
conclusion I came to.
Now, here's the thing. I'm still an advocate for celibacy, but what I'm saying is that the church needs to be fucking aware of gay people. The church has allowed gay people to become priests and bishops because they just assume that, oh, everybody's supposed to be celibate anyways, including the gay guy. They think that it's like mercy. No, you're not being merciful. A gay person cannot be a priest.
They're abusing celibacy.
It's as simple as that. It's hard to root them out because of the fucking celibacy bullshit. Because everybody tries to just turn a blind eye and be like, oh, like if they're a gay person, they just have to be celibate, right? That's fine. What a nice guy, Father so-and-so. He's such a nice gay dude. You know what I mean? No, you need to stop that shit.
Are you saying their sacraments are invalid?
No.
No.
What I'm saying is that Pope Benedict wrote it. He said that gay people cannot be priests because it's incommensurate with the actual office.
But the sacraments, like the lady, if they receive sacraments,
Yeah,
would they
I mean,
valid?
So look,
a
They received their
in his dude, this is National Center for Biotechnology or National Library of Medicine. Okay, in his recent interview published as the Book of Light of the World, Pope Benedict XVI noted that the Vatican has repeatedly stated that men with a homosexual orientation should not be admitted to the priesthood, even if they perform no homosexual acts. He stated that he did not want celibacy to be an excuse to attract people with a homosexual orientation. There are several reasons for this stance. The priesthood is not a denial of the spousal meaning of the body which underlies marriage. This spousal meaning entails the fact that since a man is a composite of body and spirit, the body is the physical self by which the gift of the soul which characterizes married love is finally ratified. The giving and receiving of sperm and ova expresses physically the prior giving and receiving of the soul. This gift of self to another, for those who are called to it, can also be realized by the gift of self to God, as is the case with virgins and religious. Though celibacy is a discipline because of all-encompassing concentration of forces necessary for the priesthood, realized especially in the consecration of the Eucharist, it is a fit means for carrying out this spousal meaning of the body. As a result, a priest must have the same ability to give the gift of himself totally as a married man does. Only his gift is to the whole church. There is an argument as to whether homosexuality is a result of nurture or nature. In either case, as long as this condition remains, the total dedication of self required of the priest would not be possible. If this is the result of nature, this cannot be changed, and the person could not contemplate a priestly vocation. If this results from nurture, then it could be changed, in which case, after a person has changed it, he could pursue the priesthood. The problem. The crisis in the priesthood regarding the abuse of children is related to a deeper problem. Is the priestly vocation compatible with homosexual tendencies? This crisis is characterized by an overwhelming preponderance of abuse of teenage boys. Not all abuse is pedophilia. The online Wikipedia explains, blah, 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 blah. Ephebophilia, as opposed to pedophilia, is preferential attraction for youth between about the ages of 11 and 14, or about the age of puberty. It involves significantly different psychological profile, which includes a higher probability of cure than pedophilia. Not only that, but many experts believe that gay culture leads more easily to ephebophilia, and so this would make it consideration of actual or deep-seated homosexuality an important consideration for priestly vocation.
Well, that's why all these people sound like kids. So
Do you understand now?
shit, they all sound
The
like
church's
kids.
constant teaching is that homosexual orientation is not compatible with priesthood. Full stop. And Catholics need to wake the fuck up.
Marriage is.
You can call it infiltration all you want, Freemasons, no, but this goes way back further than that.
Yeah, if we
So
don't
that's
use the
not what
word
I got from the
Freemason,
article.
we're just gonna have to just like tell everyone that Freemason just means gay. If we don't
Yep.
use that word.
Freemasons is way more than just gay people.
I know, but in this conversation that we've been using the word Freemason as if it's the word
Oh, yeah, I know.
homosexual.
I know.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
what I'm trying
the
to tell.
status,
That's what I'm
right.
trying to tell Silent. Like
33rd
Freemasonry
degree.
is way more than just people just being
Yeah,
gay.
Freemasonry
and Christian.
is like it is connected. There, I mean, all flippin' like Satanist groups are connected. So,
It's
but
more so theosophy, right? Freemasonry is a
Yeah,
branch
yeah,
of theosophy. So that you know, it's not really that.
it's still our
it's not
enemy.
that deep. It's all the occult. Yeah, it's the occult.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's the gay
it's-
orgies.
yeah, pedophilia. That's all it is. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
by people like McElroy and Dolan and Gregory and Supich and Tobin, etc.
Hey, what do we do?
They
I mean,
will not
Jesus gave these
expose
guys a death
these
sentence,
American
didn't he?
prelates because they all know they're just covering for their whole LGBTQ Catholic mafia here.
No, this is the New York Times too. Pope Francis, okay, this is 2016. Pope Francis sets guidelines for removing bishops who mishandle sex abuse cases. So this authorized the
that we should
resignation
address
of
these
bishops and supposedly made it
The gay
easier
mafia.
to remove bishops who
Yeah,
neglected
but
or mishandled
we should address
sex
the
abuse
issue.
cases
But again, I
involving
don't like how
minors. This is
Protestants use
2016. This
the
will
church
also
as
come back to
something like
haunt
that.
Pope Francis in a couple of years.
It's all smoke and mirrors.
Exactly.
I mean, it just
filed
lost
multiple
95% of its power.
complaints against various bishops for covering
That's
up
it.
abuse,
That's all.
even including one right now against Cardinal Gregory, who's covered up for Father Adam Park and Father the rector of the seminary in Washington, and they have yet to respond to that, to even address it, because I presented them with so much evidence and testimony that they have a hard time saying, "Oh, well, it was investigated and found unsubstantiated."
Wow. Let's see. Vatican cops. Oh, this is the 20. So this is the next year, 2017. The hits keep coming. Vatican cops bust drug-fueled gay orgy at home of Cardinal's aide, and that was Cardinal Coco Palmaria. Yeah,
Right,
20.
so that occurred, and that was after that orgy occurred years after the orgy in Springfield, Illinois, involving then Bishop George Lucas.
Springfield, Illinois.
It was only after, but it was after that orgy in Springfield that the priest who sodomized him was then later on made the rector of the North American College in Rome after this orgy in the Vatican.
Yeah, and the thing
Wonder if
is
there's a Simpsons episode about it.
Did you just hear what he said? So Pope Francis in 2016, right, came out with this whole public media thing about, how he's gonna, change the Roman Curia and add provisions to make it easier to remove bishops, who would cover up for clergy sex abuse, right? But in that same year, there was a gay fucking sex orgy in Springfield, Illinois. The priest there, who was caught sodomizing another seminarian or another priest, he was made rector of the North American College in Rome. You guys getting this? So
Now he's the one that's now teaching everyone.
So
now
they
you
get
get
caught,
it, but that's
they get
after he got
and then
caught. After he got
and then
caught.
they silently get put in power.
Correct. They just, instead of getting rid of them, they promote them up.
What's going on?
Because
So why
if
is
they
this-
move it, because if they move him to Rome, they give him a Vatican citizenship, and he can't be prosecuted in America. That's what's going
So
on.
what's happening now? Why is this coming?
I have well, they'll get into it. They're
If
cooking
they
right
were
now.
can
We're
they
at
still
we're,
be
we're at
This is a
2017 right now.
So what do you think is the solution to this?
Yeah, it's silent. We're not talking about
They-
solutions right now. We're going over the
Yeah.
facts right now.
death?
All of this stuff happens, and none of these people are removed. There's no consequences.
Of course, there's no Coco Palmerio, no, nothing is. They're put back in the ministry. Look at Jeffrey Bureau. They caught him on the Grinder app. Having sex with all these people in these bathhouses, and I mean, nothing. He's a pastor in La Crosse, Wisconsin today, and the priest who objected to this, like Father Michael Breezy in Washington D.C., he's been suspended for over 3 years now by Gregory, for exposing Gregory's cover-up of Fathers Adam Park.
These are some of
and
the
others.
most richest places. Too.
Let's see, 20. Okay, let's
Springfield,
move to
DC.
the Annus Horribilis, as they say, 2018. Okay, so it starts out with, well, it didn't start out, but this was one of the big moments was the Pennsylvania, you're in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania grand jury report, which detailed years of sexual abuse. It hit home to me because for a few years I was working for this TLM, Traditional Latin Mass group in the Diocese of Scranton, and they were written up quite a bit in that report. And
Right, now that report found that there were 300. They identified 301 victims who were abused by they identified 301 predators.
Yes.
Who abused over 1,000 victims. Now, this particular grand jury investigation involved 6 out of the 8 Pennsylvania dioceses. But you have to understand that before this grand jury met, they also investigated the Diocese of Altoona, Johnstown, where I'm from, where I'm right now at this moment, and Philadelphia. And in my diocese, which was one of the first dioceses they investigated, they were able to identify 51 predator priests. And this is a very small diocese. We've had like about 120 priests. 51 they identified as predators. So they knew, after investigating the Altoona, Johnstown diocese, Houston, we have a problem. And so it was because of all the abuse that they uncovered in Altoona, Johnstown, and in Philadelphia that led them to later on investigate the remaining 6 dioceses. So that is what this grand jury report was all about.
Yeah, I think it was important too because it was very detailed. And I didn't read the whole thing, but I read large parts of it. And I think it was important for people, especially Catholics, to read and understand because it did detail the abuse and how horrific it.
Well, and it came out too during the Summer of Shame when, at the same time, that Archbishop Vigano reported all the abuse that Francis and other bishops, covered up. And he also, in that testimony, made a direct link between McCarrick and McElroy. He basically said McElroy's in San Diego today.
Are you going to read that paper?
Because of McCarrick, but he's really there also because of John Quinn.
Yeah. Also, who was implicated in, I'm trying to thread this needle, in the PA grand jury was this person.
Do you see this photo?
Worrell, because he was formerly
look at Cardinal
Dolan, I believe, and then he was moved to Washington D.C.
That's a pretty gay photo.
During his time in Pittsburgh, it was
Cardinal Dolan with McElroy with McCarrick
look at that picture carefully,
and Cardinal Worrell.
Yes,
I mean, most people
look at how happy they are.
Dolan and McCarrick.
DiNardo.
Where is DiNardo from?
I don't know.
Pittsburgh.
Oh dear Lord.
I taught his brother in the seminary.
Oh no. Oh.
Yes. Donardo, who's in Texas, is a cardinal today. Studied at the North American College
Just
with
makes you
me.
wonder,
And
like,
Donald
are they even
Wuerl,
fucking
who you
human?
see there, sat next to me in a
Are they even human?
I'm joking. I'm
No,
not
no, no. Yeah,
putting,
yeah,
like,
yeah. No,
that's
no, no.
hyperbolic. Yeah.
I kind of agree. Like, how can these people be so oblivious? You see what I mean? Like, McCarrick is definitely a demon. You know what I mean? Because like
Yeah.
he's already been convicted of molesting seminarians, or not only just molesting but sodomizing seminarians. Wuerl has been covering up for McCarrick this whole time. You have Dolan in New York who's trying to like play the game, right? But he's basically one of them at this point. Then you have Cardinal fucking hell, I forgot his name. DiNardo in Texas. Why do you think he became a cardinal? Because McCarrick and Wuerl allowed it. Does that make sense? That's what's going on. So the people who run the church is actually all the gay mafia. If you're not on their good side, and if you show them any kind of signal that you're like that, what you find what they're doing to be reprehensible, you don't think that they're gonna. You don't think these criminals are not gonna realize that. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's referred to as a mafia. If you try to project that you're like if you try to project at all in front of these people that you're gonna be like some honorable person, they're gonna squash you out. That's the way that this works.
Right.
So you have to quote unquote play the game. It's not a game. This is fucking sodomy right here. This is fucking Homo-Heresy. It's just heresy. But if you had Dolan try to make a coalition with guys like DiNardo to try to call these and have a fucking war, they don't want to fight it. That's what's going on. Why don't we just fuck all this playing around to get along? Just fucking fight it out in public and just air the dirty laundry. Just call them out like they used to do in the early church.
I agree with that.
You guys are a bunch of fucking sodomites. You guys need to get the hell out of the church. You're not part of Christ's church. Why can't they do that? Just make the schism happen.
Where are we dropping, boys?
Doctoral seminar at the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas. So I know them all. The only one whom I didn't personally meet face to face was McCarrick, although he was there at the time when I was there, and I was just warned: do not get in the elevator alone.
Yeah, it's only going to get worse. It's too late.
It's not bad.
This picture is not that easy to find. It's so revolting because Dolan, McCarrick, and they're just all laughing, and it's really psychotic because I think
they're all part of the same group.
Yeah.
But I'm the church.
And then of course, that same year you also had the Vigano letter. It was interesting because
if none of these
I remember
existed,
when that
I would
letter.
Still be here, so.
It shows you how naive I was. 2018 was kind of a pivotal year for me, not to talk about myself, but this is connected with Pennsylvania as well. In 2018, there was the National Courage Conference, which goes on every year, and it was in Philly.
Who's that cardinal again?
With Archbishop
That looks
Chaput.
like a cardinal.
And I had a bad experience at the
I would never think of my pastor.
He's not a cardinal. You're talking about this guy on the right, right? That's Archbishop Vigano. This photo, this photo happened a year before Vigano came out and called out all the gay corruption at the church.
The thing is, Silent, I was never raised to think of my pastor as a representative of my church, because my pastor would say it like we all.
The Courage Conference. I didn't like the general tone of the conference. I had a hard time with it, and then this all happened, and actually after the Courage Conference down in Philly, I drove up to Lackawanna County, or I don't know, up in Scranton, and there's an Orthodox seminary and monastery up there, and I stayed for about 3 or 4 days and kind of decompressed and tried to deprogram myself. And it was at that point I decided to leave Catholicism. I'd really had enough. And I remember a Catholic journalist called me about that Vigano letter, and shows you how naive I was. And I read it and I said, "Oh my God, this is like an atomic bomb." Did
you guys catch that? I know Silent just keeps fucking talking over this shit, but 1 second, we'll rewind it. So Joe Sciambra, he says it was after Vigano's letter that he left the church. He left for Russian Orthodoxy because he he was just sick and tired of all this fucking cover up.
Kind of decompressed and tried to deprogram myself. And it was at that point I decided to leave Catholicism. I'd really had enough. And I remember a Catholic journalist called me about that Vegana letter, and shows you how naive I was. And I read it and I said, "Oh my God, this is like an atomic bomb." And she was saying, "Well, what do you think Pope Francis is going to do?" I said, "Well, he's got no other choice. He's got to resign. This is so bad." Shows you how naive I was, and it was a nothing.
No, it's like any bishop who is called before the grand jury. He's on the stand and he takes the fifth. Remember when Francis was coming back from Ireland, he was asked it was at the time when Vigano's testimony came out. And the reporter asked him, what he had to say. Is he going to resign or what? Or is this true? Do you think Francis, if you accuse me of all those things that Vigano accused Francis of, if I were innocent, I'm going to say, hold it. It's all lies, and I can prove it, And there's a motive why this guy is trying to defame me, and I'll explain that, okay? But if you're guilty, and you don't want to be exposed, get caught in a lie, because you see, Francis already got caught in a lie that he did not want to get caught again. When he wrote his book on heaven and earth, he wrote in that book, he co-authored with a rabbi from Argentina. He wrote in that book about sex abuse. He said, sex abuse never happened in my diocese. Well, of course, that's a total lie. I mean, who can believe 2.7 million Catholics in those sex abuse? Come on, So he knew that he got caught in a lie before. So when he was on that airplane in 2018 and confronted by the reporter about Vigano's testimony, he said, "Well, I have nothing to say."
Yeah.
He took the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah. To remind some people, as I saw it, I think the most important accusation in that initial letter was that Pope Francis knew that Cardinal McCarrick was a serial child abuser, and Pope Benedict had placed certain restrictions upon him, but that Pope Francis had subsequently lifted them, given McCarrick kind of a golden ticket to travel the world and molest more kids. So that was sort of the main, I thought, accusation in that. And it was, it was true just because that's what had happened,
Right. Well, you see, what you have to remember too is that it was in 2013 that Vigano said that he confronted Francis about McCarrick.
Wow.
And remember, Francis later on denied that, then backpedaled and said, "Well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't." And but then remember, that was in 2013 that Vigano said that he informed him. But remember, it was in 2016, in July of 2016, the late Richard Sype, God rest his soul, reported to McElroy that McCarrick sexually abused 12 seminarians and 12 former seminarians and priests. And that report, remember, was covered up by McElroy, who said, "Well, it's not substantiated. It's not. I didn't find it credible. Hold it." He never spoke with any of the victims. He just dismissed it. And you talk about cover-ups. And then, of course, remember that letter that Sype sent to McElroy was not for McElroy, because McElroy has no power to remove McCarrick. McElroy has no authority. Not even the Conference of Bishops have any authority to remove a bishop. Only the Pope. So the letter that McElroy had legally served to McElroy was covered up by both McElroy and the Pope. And you know that is a fact. Why? Because not one word about that report is found in the entire McCarrick report, written by Lena, who was a defense attorney from California.
Do you guys understand this now? So the McCarrick thing happened in 2018, right? In 2016, Pope Francis made this whole media thing about, he's going to make it easier to remove bishops. But then the McCarrick thing happens in 2018. The only person who could actually remove a bishop is the Pope himself. So did the Pope, when the McCarrick thing happened, did the Pope actually, do what he said he was going to do? The answer is no. He didn't.
One in the city, no.
He makes this whole media thing that he's going to make it easier to remove bishops in 2016. In 2018-19 is when the McCarrick scandal hit the fucking public. and the Pope did not remove him immediately. They just continue to try to make excuses. Oh, we don't find these reports credible. Oh, there's nothing. But while all the criminal prosecution is happening, like, and then it was finally made credible when in the public, in court. The Vatican already had access to all of the same documents that the court had, and the court is the one who makes a determination that it was criminal, and then the Vatican follows because they have no other choice. They tried to diminish it, dismiss it until they couldn't, basically. So under Pope Francis, was the church able to be accountable? The answer is no.
Okay, well, this just continues that same year of 2018, the McCarrick scandal. Virtually everyone knew. Priest says he repeatedly complained about Cardinal McCarrick. My memory's getting a little foggy, but I think a letter was given to Cardinal O'Malley of Boston.
Yes, that was from Father Boniface Ramsey, who taught at Seton Hall. He was a seminary professor there.
Okay. And then
he reported that back in the 90s, actually, to the Vatican. It was buried.
Okay.
So then he brought it up again to O'Malley, and then O'Malley later on said, "Oh well, his letter got misplaced."
Isn't that crazy? O'Malley, I think, just resigned or retired.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is the Barros part deux. So this is still 2018. We're still in the same year. Pope shocks Chile by accusing sex abuse victims of slander. It's all calumny. It's that clear. Sex abuse scandal dominated Pope Francis's visit. So he went and stood by this bishop that the laity in Chile were still, upset about, and he stood by this crooked.
So the reason why it's important to know the facts in their chronological order, right? Because this is the history of the church. That's all I'm saying. You know when fight comes in here, and then whenever we bring up this topic about how the bishops and cardinals and the Pope himself are covering it up, and fight comes here and he goes, "Oh, that's just all calumny. Why do you hate the Pope?"
He calls it propaganda.
And right, and he just goes, "Oh, that's all Jewish propaganda." When literally the Pope himself, right? The Pope himself is gaslighting the abuse victims in Chile by saying that, "Oh, what you're saying is calumny, and this is all unfounded slander that you're laying against these bishops." But then it turns out when they actually do the investigation, it turns out that the sex abuse victims were right. And all the evidence actually implicates all the freaking bishops in Chile. Meanwhile, Pope Francis is trying to gaslight the whole situation. They can't help themselves. That's what I'm saying.
I agree.
That's why people like Fight piss me the most off, because if Fight, let's say Fight wasn't married and he was a bishop or a priest, he'd be the same thing as a Pope Francis. That's what I'm saying. You think it takes a special person to be as evil as Pope Francis or McCarrick or any of these bishops? No, they're ordinary. You meet these people all the time. They're in here. Fight is one of these people.
They're your teachers, your mentors, your famous people.
I just want to say with Abysmal, I agree with you 100%.
Your content creators.
And I wasn't trying to say that this isn't a problem in the church. I just think that we should also.
No. Most lay people are not keeping up with all this stuff. It's not your fault, but there is naivety. Because you don't know, that's what makes you naive. That's all I'm saying. And when you're dealing with evil at this level, it's not something that is foreign to you. Because for ordinary people, we wouldn't think to be evil at this level. But what I'm saying is that it's more often the case that evil is banal. It's very ordinary. It doesn't take much for someone to become evil. That's all I'm saying. We see these people all the time.
There's nothing you've said throughout this entire time I've been watching this video that I disagree with Abysmo. And I wasn't trying to be controversial or anything.
That's not what I was saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you said.
Of course he did, because he's the same way.
I just think that we should also be trying to find a way to solve this.
Yeah. We're not talking solutions right now, and we don't. That's above our pay grade, Silent. We'll continue.
I mean, he's actually probably worse than these people. All the people you're showing on these slides, Francis, is far worse than most of them. He's covered up more abuse, and he's probably engaged. He's probably, sodomized and abused more Jesuit novices than any of these guys.
Oh God. Now, this was the nail in the Catholic coffin for me. So in 2018, the German Catholic bishops authorized the blessing of gay couples, and at that point, I'd had it. So it was gay. It was
So Joe Sciambra, I already told you, he's an abuse victim when he was a kid. He was a homosexual. He did the homosexual lifestyle. He reconverted to Catholicism, and then basically he's just a Catholic at that point, and he's trying to be holy. In 2017, 2018, when the whole McCarrick was starting to happen, that's when Joe Sciambra came out with his story, and he was trying to sound the alarm on all this cover-up. And then in 2018, the German bishops approved same-sex blessing of couples before Pope Francis did, right, in the Fiducia Supplicans. And then this is when Joe Sciambra decided to leave the church. And then he became a Russian Orthodox.
groomers. It was enough, and I was out. So.
Well, and because they're all doing it. So Mark's right there in the photo. I mean, he was probably, sleeping around when he was in a seminary. I would bet my retirement on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. German cardinal gives blessings to same-sex couples. German Cardinal Reinhard Marx, the face of the Catholic Church in Germany, no longer rejects liturgical blessing of same-sex couples. This is 2018. Yeah, that's when I had enough. And then, okay. This is also 2018. Our good friend James Martin. Pope Francis, God made you gay. This really set me off. Juan Carlos, that you are gay does not matter. God made you like that, and he loves you like that, and I do not care. The Pope wants you like that. You have to be happy with who you are. I wrote a couple of articles about how I thought sadistically disgusting this was, that the Pope would tell a homosexual pre-sex abuse survivor that God made them gay. This is like the ultimate cover-up of corruption and child
gaslighting.
Well, of course it is, because they want people to believe that these victims of sexual abuse, oftentimes during their period of psychosexual development, were just born that way.
Exactly.
They don't want to be caught. They don't want to admit that. They don't want people like this to say, hold it, when I was 16 or 17 or 18 years old, Father so-and-so abused me. And oftentimes too, unfortunately, they don't realize it was abuse because the person who came onto them groomed them, made them think that they were, their best friend.
The thing about the sexual abuse of boys and young men in the Catholic Church is that I believe it's probably one of the most underreported crimes in history, because this is the problem here, is that, and I've done a lot of research on this, it can be as high as 50% of men who identify as gay were sexually abused. And I just know from when I was living that life for 10 years, it was kind of shocking how many men had been sexually abused by men or by priests. And it had never been reported because they never even considered it abuse. So
because they didn't realize, but you have to understand, put this in context. Think about this very, very carefully. I will bet my military retirement that Robert McElroy, who will be installed as the Cardinal Archbishop of Washington, D.C., was groomed, and because he was groomed, he does not feel that what happened to him was abuse. Yeah. Because in time, you see, if your abuser, if the person who groomed you, befriends you, and not just for that moment, but continues to keep in touch with you, continues to promote you, continues to support you, you're going to look upon him almost like your father. Yeah. In other words, if I get married and have children, I beget children as a heterosexual. But if I'm like a bishop, a gay bishop, and I groom you, you become my son. So if I cannot, instead of...
Do you guys understand this?
Then you become my son?
Yeah, so think about what this father is saying.
That's just like Islam with child marriage.
Well, no, this is different from that, because we're talking about, so heterosexuals, right, have children through copulation, right? But if you have gay people, they can't copulate. So how do they have quote unquote children?
Yeah.
By grooming twinks. This is the twink culture. So what he's
I'm just
saying is that,
saying it's just as disgusting. It's
yeah,
like
this
they
is
have
why
daughter wives.
homosexuality in the priesthood is so bad, because it creates this culture where the gay bishops, they groom like younger priests,
Yeah.
not only by sodomizing them, but then they also support them, right, in their career. And that's how this gay culture in the Catholic Church persists. They think what they're doing is okay, right? Because they tell themselves that, oh, God made us gay. This is how gay guys do it. That's what's going on.
Wait, so that's why they're. I thought I thought they were trying to classify it as a mental illness, but was that just a way to get to give it a
Wait,
pass?
who's trying to classify it as a mental illness?
The church, the Catholic Church.
Well, no, the class, no, the it.
I thought that was like decades ago. But I guess that never was the case.
Well, homosexuality is in the DSM-5. I'm not sure if you're aware of this.
For what is that? Is
You
that the
don't know what
Catholic Church or medical?
that's medical. Look it up,
Oh yeah, I
DSM-5.
know. I know that. I know. Medic,
Okay, so
I know
you don't you
medically
did you
it's
yeah, but
considered.
you didn't know that homosexuality is in the DSM-5?
No, I just knew it
Okay,
was
okay. So
medically
the Catholic Church's
a mental
teaching is
illness.
that homosexual behavior is objectively disordered.
Yeah,
Why is it objectively disordered? Because
God made it that
heterosexuality
way.
is what is normative and not homosexuality. Does this make sense?
Yeah, I know. But
But
the Catholic Church is saying,
way that the gays deal with homosexuality is they say that, oh, it's good that you were born gay. God made you gay. So for the gay bishops in the church, they perpetuate this culture of not only sodomy within the church, but they don't think that it's wrong because they support each other's career this way.
they're saying God made them out of the natural order, which
To become priests and then to become bishops and to
which is
sodomize each other and express their
blasphemy.
love to one another as priests and bishops in this way and also support each other in their careers. Do you get what I mean? So they believe that priesthood is a gay profession. That's what they're turning it into.
That Robert McElroy, who will be installed as the Cardinal Archbishop of Washington, D.C., was groomed, and because he was groomed, he does not feel that what happened to him was abuse. Yeah. Because in time, you see, if your abuser, if the person who groomed you, befriends you, and not just for that moment, but continues to keep in touch with you, continues to promote you, continues to support you, you're going to look upon him almost like your father. Yeah. In other words, if I get married and have children, I beget children as a heterosexual. But if I'm like a bishop, a gay bishop, and I groom you, you become my son. So if I cannot, instead of begetting children through heterosexual relations, I beget you through a homosexual relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Are you invited to a McElroy's installation?
They must have misplaced my invitation somewhere, because I go, every day I run to my mailbox, hoping and I'm looking for that invitation. It's not there yet.
Oh my God. I bet EWTN will carry it live.
Oh, I'm sure Catholic News Service and EWTN and, AP and CNN, they'll make this like this guy is so smart. He went to Harvard. Well, he went to Stanford. My goodness, look at his degrees. Talk about all the abuse and everything else. Yeah. They only report one side. They are so. Then you wonder why people have absolutely no faith in the legacy media.
Yeah, the mainstream media narrative on McElroy is that he's a Trump critic, so he'll be good in that position in D.C. So lovely. Now, and this is also, God, I'm still in 2018. So this is 2018 during that was that, what did they call it? Meeting of Families, Catholic Meeting of Families. And one of the sort of auxiliary events or something. It wasn't directly associated with the Catholic meeting of families, but James Martin, that caused a bit of controversy at the time because he was invited to speak on the gay issue. And then he also did this other event with James Allison, who I've done some research on. He's I don't know if he's still an active priest in the Catholic Church, but he's, out gay advocate. And then you had, who's this awful little person? Reverend Peter Doyle, the Bishop of Northampton, and James Martin was there. And then they had this very creepy image here with like a child's hand and a man's hand. It was very bizarre. And that's what the Catholic Church was promoting in 2018.
The North American Male Love Boy Association.
Yeah. This is still 2018. Argentine priest jailed for 25 years for abuse of minors. An Argentine court sentenced a Catholic priest to 25 years. But according to Bergoglio, he never had a case of
no, it never
a
happened. That must have been wrong. He must be falsely accused.
A predator priest in Buenos Aires.
Yeah, when he's investigated by the church, all those allegations are found unsubstantiated.
This is still 2018. I didn't know I had this much. Honduran seminarians allege widespread homosexual misconduct. Cardinal Maradiaga.
Tegucigalpa.
Ugh. Yeah.
In a seminary there.
Yeah.
Maradiaga.
Still 2018. Okay, this is 2019. So what did, how could Pope Francis top 2018? Well, he brought in a pagan idol to St. Peter's and did a weird ceremony. That's how he topped it. Yeah, Pachamama.
Pachamama.
Who are these guys? What's wrong with them?
Wait. That's voodoo, bro.
With, if you're selling your soul had a picture, it would be this. I mean, oh my God. This is 2020, the following year. Pope Francis to parents of LGBTQ kids. God loves your children as they are. So he's going back to this born gay stuff, which I think is very strategic. I'm not bringing this stuff up just because I've got a personal, stake in this, but I think it's very strategic that he's done this.
Well, he wants to do that because he will not admit that their children oftentimes were abused by priests.
That's it. You cut right to it. This is 2021, American seminary in Rome to defend itself against lawsuit alleging predatory homosexuality. Well, you know about this.
I know about every intimate detail of that in the New York Supreme Court. And my testimony is part of the court record.
Okay. Why couldn't, I had a question about this because when I was rereading the history of this case, why couldn't this be brought to a court in Italy?
Well, because it's the Pontifical North American College is it's extraterritorial. You have to understand while it's in Rome,
right?
It's having lived there for 4 years. My address was 00120 Vatican City State. So it's extraterritorial. So you see, there's no jurisdiction. Rome has no jurisdiction. Italy has no jurisdiction over the Pontifical North American College. But when Anthony Gorgia brought suit, he brought suit because the North American College is somehow registered in New York State or whatever. Somehow there's a connection with New York.
But is the NAC, is that under the Vatican State?
It's you see, Vatican City has properties outside the walls.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And those buildings outside the walls are called extraterritorial, but they are part of the Vatican City State, which includes the Pontifical North American College.
So if any sort of alleged crime takes place like within that territory of like the Vatican State, how do you address that? What do you do?
Well, again, it's really you have to go into the Concordat, and to see, what will be investigated by the Vatican, and if they will even allow, Italian law enforcement authorities, to investigate that. It's sort of like even in the case of remember when the death of John Paul II was questioned, was he murdered?
Yeah.
You probably won't have any like Roman or Italian state, investigators involved in that.
What happened with that case where the where the two Swiss, where the Swiss guard killed another one. What happened? You remember that
Like,
case?
oh yes, I know the people there. Yeah. uh,
Because that was very suspicious, all that going on.
well, yes and no. Uh, the the murder took place the morning of the day that the Swiss guards were to be sworn in. Okay, and the commandant of the Swiss guard is ordinarily from a royal family. You know, some kind of he has to have some kind of a good background in Switzerland like that. Well, make a long story short, they couldn't find anyone from that lineage who would step up and come down and be the commandant of the Swiss Guard. So they offered it to the executive officer, the lieutenant colonel who's in charge, who's the XO of the Swiss Guards. And when he was off, but you have to understand, if you're like the XO, it's like on a ship or a command that you ordinarily are in charge of discipline. Yeah. So what happened was, right before this event was to take place, a French-speaking Swiss guard was out. He missed curfew, and so when he came in to be disciplined, the discipline he was awarded was that he would be installed, but privately. He would not be allowed to participate in the ceremony. Now you have to understand, his family was coming down from Switzerland for this ceremony, right? He was embarrassed.
Yeah.
So the morning of, what he did was he basically went went to the apartment of the officer who was going to be installed that day as the new commandant, and he murdered him and his wife, and then he took his own life.
Who investigated that crime?
That was investigated by the Vatican. And the thing was, I knew actually the person who was murdered. I spoke with him 6 months earlier.
Wow.
I happened to be in Rome, and I was walking through I was walking across St. Peter's Square, right in front of the Basilica, and I met him, and I knew him because a number of my friends are Swiss guards, and I even married one in Chicago to a Polish young lady. Well, anyhow, I spoke with him, and I said, "Hey, have they chosen the new commandant yet?" And he says, "No, but they're thinking of maybe making me the commandant. They're still waiting to see if they can find someone else." So I said, "Well, I wish him luck, because I knew that he was a really good guy."
God rest his soul. And then this is 2022, the following year. Argentine bishop defended by Pope sentenced in abuse case. An Argentine court has sentenced Roman Catholic bishop to 4.5 years in prison for sexual abuse of 2 former seminarians, Gustavo Zanchetta.
Zanchetta. He was the first bishop that Bergoglio made.
Wow.
And that's why I believe, my theory is that Zanchetta was one of the, before he was even ordained a priest, my theory is that there's something was going on between Zanchetta and Bergoglio.
Yeah, I know
they're so close. I mean, they're so close.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this, at length, but I think it is important this because it doesn't get talked about really at all, the grooming and abuse of Catholic seminarians, because I can't talk just like maybe you can't talk about some of your sources, but I have talked to people who've been very, very close to the situation, and it's a big problem. It's very widespread. It's very endemic. Sometimes it involves what I would have to describe as human trafficking, where young men are brought in from other countries with the promise of attending seminaries and becoming priests, and they essentially become sex slaves to high-ranking clerics. And that's
absolutely. I'm involved in that right now. Actually, a former sex trafficked seminarian, Wiesław Wallander, who was sex trafficked from Poland, is actually has just been invited to be part of a task force to look into sex trafficking and involving illegal immigrants and immigrants in general, because he wasn't an illegal immigrant. He had an F1 student visa, but in the end, he was sexually abused by McCarrick at his beach house, and then later on drugged and sodomized by Monsignor Edward Staub at St. John, the Evangelist Parish in Severna Park, Maryland.
Yeah. And I'm not, when I say I'm not saying who have told me these things, I'm not trying to protect the church, but I'm just saying that the people that have said these things to me are themselves victims, and they don't, although I've encouraged them to come forward, they don't want to. And it's very understandable why they don't want to, because it's unbelievable what they're going to have to come up against if they do come forward. So,
well, there's another reason, Joseph. There's
I'm
another
being
reason why a lot of them
sodomized. I
do
would
not
kill
want to come
someone.
forward, and that is that what happens. It's sort of like if you look at,
they got brainwashed.
well, not only brainwash. Yeah, well,
Is polygamy allowed in Christianity?
Straight up guts.
That's the thing, Grudgin, is like you would assume, right, that like people would actually fight against this, but they don't. Because, you know, technically speaking, yeah, it should be grounds for some sort of retaliation. But what the gay guys, both at the Vatican and in the church, do is they use civil law and civil structure. That's why they keep trying to push for normalization of homosexuality, even from the Vatican. It's a form of gaslighting. It's a form of tyranny and oppression. That's what Homo-Heresy is.
They're just beating everyone down till they just accept it.
And and unfortunately, that's what the Catholic Church is. It's a gay mafia, and people on the outside don't realize this.
Somehow
You don't
do
realize
that.
80% of the people at the Vatican, all the priests and bishops that work there, they're all gay. They're trying to hide. They're professionals at hiding their own identity and hiding their own fucking degeneracy from the public.
I'm gonna ask the pastor that raised me about this.
they got turned. You see, because they were abused, unless like Mark Brooks, who was abused by Father Nick Reveles in San Diego. Mark was sodomized, drugged and sodomized by Reveles after he got out of the Marine Corps he was in the Marine Corps for 8 years. Then he went to the seminary there. But you see, the difference was Brooks, by the time he was sodomized by Reveles, he already was firm in his heterosexuality. He had, in the biblical sense, had known women, right? So if you abuse someone who's already firmly identified as a heterosexual, who's already had heterosexual relations with women, it's much more difficult to turn that person as it would be for someone to, if you take a victim, like a seminarian who's never had sex with a woman. And so the chances of someone being groomed and abused, in that case, the chances of that person later becoming a homosexual are far, far, far greater. And because of that, a lot of those victims you talk to, including a number of SNAP,
we're in the middle of something,
people that work in SNAP, they do not want to
watch the stream,
talk about what happened and why, because they also want to be very insistent that you cannot, just because they are gay today does not mean they're predators. So that's why they always want to make, more than anyone else, want to distinguish between someone who's a homosexual and someone who is a predator.
Yeah. There's also a sort of tacit compliance. Now, these guys I've talked with, they haven't been necessarily propositioned themselves or sexually abused, but they're certainly aware of that going on. But I say tacit compliance because they have to sort of tolerate that atmosphere in the seminary as a price to ordination. So
you get this?
Noticed, and this is with the laity too. I learned this firsthand. A squeaky wheel is not welcomed in Catholicism. Something that is quiet is one. And this atmosphere pervades the seminary. And I would say it transfers over to the parish life, where priests, let's say they're aware of something, but they got to be quiet. And they've already been ordained. So it's not the price of ordination, but it's the price of keeping the priesthood.
Well, that's what happened, remember, with Richard Biedrzyk, who was also sex trafficked from Poland, who then was abused by Father Art Smith in Buffalo, and who was told that he would never be ordained if he reported it to the police.
Hey, that's where I
live. He ordained a priest because he kept his mouth shut. But then, seeing how
interesting, right? You see how clear to home it is. This is why people are leaving the Catholic Church. This is why the church isn't actually preaching the gospel. It's because, again, its own priests, right? The price of admission, of ordination, is to keep your fucking mouth shut. And you have to tolerate this fucking degeneracy that's happening over and over and being perpetuated in the church. And especially when you have popes like Pope Francis, who himself is a known pedophile cover-up man. You have to,
Like,
it perpetuates the culture of permitting this.
Sounds like it's time for a revival.
Right. So, like a couple of years ago,
That's not what I want. I don't want a revival. I want judgment at this point. I want God to come down here and like basically just destroy. No, no. We don't need fucking. There's no reform of this, dude. Just judgment, dude. I want Sodom and Gomorrah. Turn the Vatican into a pillar of salt. That's what I want.
There was war during
why would you want anything different?
The Reformation.
God already did it in the past. Just fucking turn it into a pillar of salt.
There were wars during the Reformation. I'm reading about them right now.
Yeah.
You know, so just I feel like that would be more formal. But I know what you mean. Yeah.
I think I mean we're 1,000 years since Peter Damian in the sense that this goes back like the homosexual problem in the church. There were gay popes in the past, like look up Pope Julius II. So he had a gay boyfriend, and he turned his gay boyfriend into a cardinal.
Wait, he had a eunuch?
No, he had a gay boyfriend, and he turned that gay boyfriend into a cardinal. Pope Julius II.
In the 15th, so this was during.
Yeah.
This was during the Protestant Reformation.
Yeah, you didn't know? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, dude, it's been centuries of this fucking bullshit. That's what I'm saying. Like, we don't need another Reformation. This was happening during the Reformation. The only thing that's gonna do anything is just turn the whole thing into a fucking pillar of salt.
So, a couple of years ago in Buffalo, in the city where I live, there was like 150 people that came out. This is like happened a couple of years. It was a big deal. They had like lawyers on billboards calling for more people to come out and say that they've been molested by this Catholic priest in Buffalo. And that's 150. I mean, that's a lot, obviously.
Like, what you want...
Destroyed, shattered lives forever.
4 days ago.
The only peaceful way out, Grudgin, what I'm trying to say is that, like, is people need to be, like, the lay people need to be asking for heterosexual priests and demanding heterosexual priests. If you want a peaceful resolution and not the pillar of salt, which, that's the thing, I don't have faith in the lay people. I actually don't. Because the lay people are just naive and stupid. They don't want to look at the ugly side of the church. Because they have so much of their own daily shit going on in their personal lives. Got it. Good. But the least that they could do is demand heterosexual priests. But they don't even do that. You get what I mean? So the church can't give what the people don't have. You get what I mean?
Or write another decree or something.
The decree isn't going to help at this point, man.
No, I'm saying like married men can join the. You know what I mean? Just like
that's a, you know, and I'm open to that discussion. I am open to that discussion because you know,
something
again,
that kind of just changes the idea. Because
when you look at Pope Julius II, like it was there for even 500 years ago. So
the Catholic Church it never banned married men from the priesthood, but if you ask a random person on the street, whether they're gonna say, "Oh, you can't be married and be a priest," what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Because it's somehow that's just been common, and it goes back to that whole celibacy thing you're talking about. Like they just force they abuse celibacy so much. Right?
Yeah,
I was talking to my dad about this, which is crazy, bro. Like 2 weeks ago, I was talking to my dad about this.
Yeah, I think I understand the discipline of celibacy, but yeah, it's been abused by the gay priests and gay bishops in the church for way too long as a cover.
It doesn't it doesn't count for gay people. Like gay people should not be
Priests to
practicing
begin with.
homosexuality.
Well,
Yeah, they should not. Yeah, they shouldn't be priests. And then the whole they can deal with their homosexuality, on their own time, but they should not be involved with the priesthood whatsoever.
How Bishop Malone of Buffalo was covering up all this other abuse, then he blew the whistle, only then to be suspended by Malone on the day that he left office.
Yeah.
So do you get this? Like, even priests have to tolerate this code of silence, because if they don't and they try to speak out, then their own gay bishop removes them.
And he's suspended to this day.
I mean, this mindset trickles down to the lady, because I know when I was Catholic, I did a lot of reporting.
Irish, we're kind of in the middle of a video. You can join us if you want.
On this kind of
yeah,
gay
I was
stuff.
just saying, the Pope has already spoke up about this still.
No, he
Yeah,
hasn't.
in
Yeah,
2006.
he literally said it's
We're
fair,
kind of going through the. We're kind of going.
You'll see.
You can patch in with us, Irish. We're kind of beyond that. We're like almost done with the video. I'll post the video for you so you can take a look.
To my own shame, I did at times kind of self-curate, and I was kind of like, well, maybe I won't.
So I mean, case in point, right? Like, Irish. I know. So this is what I mean. Destroy All Secrets. Like, Irish. Like, she's a great Catholic woman, but she came in here after we went through the chronology of events, right? Remember back when we were talking about, and Pope Francis said this in 2016, but the McCarrick shit happens in 2018. And the Pope is the only one that can remove the right, but the Pope Francis, even after 2016, was denied, dismissed all the allegations against McCarrick, and then the court finally prosecutes McCarrick. So was the Vatican aware? Yes, they were, because they had more information than the court did. You know what I mean? Like, so did Pope Francis, do what he said he was going to do back in 2016? No, he didn't.
No. Because he's a
right.
child abuser.
Right. When it came to protecting McCarrick, he did. He didn't do. Yeah, he chose to protect McCarrick rather than dismiss him. And even when even when in 2016 he said, he's going to broaden the provisions by which a bishop could be removed. Well, only the Pope can remove a bishop. He didn't remove McCarrick until after he was prosecuted. That's crazy.
Their way of doing it is, I'm not going to prosecute, or I'm not going to throw someone under the bus that does what I do. So I'm just going to ignore it until they're forced to.
Right. Which defeats the whole purpose, right? So basically, it's an admission of guilt. It's admitting that the church can't police itself. So it's self-defeating for the Pope to have written in 2016 that he's going to address the problem.
After a little bit of this, I do Catholic women don't go anywhere, because I do want to hear the response.
Okay.
Let's go through the
because
video.
It's going to make the traditional Latin Mass kind of look bad. I'm not going to talk about my experiences in the Scranton Diocese with that whole world. So people do that, and it's bad. And Catholics got kind of pissed at me after I left the church, because I was just kind of like, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to talk about everything. I don't, Corleone's a crook. They're all awful people. I don't care if they tolerate the TLM and smells and bells. I'm not going to play that game anymore. And Catholics got pretty mad at me. So, too bad. So this is the following year, 2023. The Vatican's next doctrinal guardian defends the book on kissing he wrote as a young priest. And I can't recall this guy's name. Oh, Cardinal Fernandez, yes.
Right. Now, he was outed by the Argentine celebrity nun. She wrote on X, about what a flamer he is. I mean, she wrote it on X. She said, the Pope just appointed this very, very, very gay, put him in charge of guarding, the hen house. He's a wolf to begin with,
Yeah. I mean, I've been out of that scene for a long time, but my gaydar still kind of works. And with him, it's like, it's kind of obvious, so it's pretty bad. This was from Cardinal Fernandez. This is the same year. I was kind of offended by this.
Always keeping your head in the sand.
Pope Francis held a luncheon with the transgender hookers of Rome. And if he has an empathy and a compassion for these people, I mean, that's great. That's great. I do too. But This is not ministry. This is theater. I know theater when I see it. This is pure theater. If he wanted to meet with these people, you do it quietly and you do it, under the radar. But he had to make it a big
About the
media
lay people,
event. And he's
yeah,
not dumb. He did that
Irish
for a
Catholic.
reason, so.
How many times have you seen the Pope in with a group of abuse victims?
Never.
Ta-da!
Exactly.
The defense rests.
Vatican. Oh, now we're getting close to the end here. Vatican approves gay men to be priests in Italy, but they'll be barred from flaunting their homosexuality, like Cardinal Fernandez. So.
Right.
That's disgusting.
In other words, just stay in the closet, guys.
Yeah, it's like
let people, because otherwise it's going to harm the income. People are going to stop giving and become orthodox.
It's from your lips to God's ears. So it's becoming kind of satire at this point. Another thing that was very personally offended to me, because I've bumped into some of these people, and I have to say they're some of the most evil people I've ever met in my life. This is Pope Francis with New Ways Ministry, which is a gay affirmative founded in the United States group. They advocate for same-sex marriage. I mean, you name it, they're there. This ghoulish woman here, Janine Gramick, she was repeatedly censured by Pope John Paul and Benedict. But hey, to her credit, and she got up, I heard her give speeches where she's literally tore it up and said, I don't care that they've censured me because there's no teeth in any of these Vatican documents. And she just said, I don't care. And she kept doing, and here he is again with these awful people. Here she is in Maryland when there was a state referendum to legalize same-sex marriage. And this is one of the Pope's BFFs. This makes all sense. Now it comes full circle. Here's the pro-gay contingent in the Catholic Church, a guy who's on the Pontifical Council for the Protection of Minors, and one of Pope Francis's old students who's gay, who I think I got a picture. Oh yeah, here's Pope Francis with his former gay student and his much younger husband. It's all about grooming and gays. That's the legacy of Pope Francis. Here's McElroy. I'm winding down here. Here's McElroy in San Diego with the gay LGBT Catholic group. Francis appoints 3 pro-gay prelates to Vatican doctrinal office. Argentine diocese bishop resigned. This is this year. Argentine diocese bishop resigned over abuse allegations. Bishop Carlos Maria Dominguez. Oh, this is kind of your wheelhouse too. Pope Francis denounces, I didn't want to get into politics, but I thought at the end if we had time. Pope Francis denounces attempts to close southern border as madness.
Right. For someone who has, if you enter the Vatican City, you'll be arrested and could be imprisoned up to 6 years. I mean, you talk about total hypocrisy.
Well, the thing is that in the native-born population of the United States, the Catholic population is tanking. It's hit bottom. So the only thing they have to put bodies in the pews is to bring in people from other countries. And the Catholic Church is complicit in human trafficking. This is research I did for USAID. Catholic Church, and so you'll recognize, Gene, these are some of the worst offenders in the abuse problem.
Yeah.
So we got Chicago, 82% of Catholic Charities is funded by the taxpayer at a tune of $125 million. My diocese, San Francisco, 93%, $42 million. Galveston, Houston, 100%, $81 million from the U.S. government. Catholic Charities of California, 99%, $25 million. Okay, Trenton.
And that to me also.
Trenton, $23 million to Catholic Charities of Trenton. That's 84% of their budget. Diocese of Rochester was one of the worst. How much is the percentage? It's 71%. That was $47 million. Diocese of Syracuse, another one of the worst. 91% of their budget is U.S. tax dollars. $40 million from the U.S. government. I can't believe it. And you're not, and nobody's going to tell me that part of this money isn't going for sex abuse.
Oh, of course, they're using that to help pay off the abuse victims.
Yeah, if they haven't declared bankruptcy in order to cheat
Sure,
them.
most of them have.
Yeah. I get so angry. I'm sorry. Texas AG accuses Catholic nonprofit of human smuggling, sues to shut it down. What about all these unaccompanied minors that are going over the southern border and they're handed over to Catholic charities? I'm sure there's very good people in Catholic charities that would never harm one hair on a child's head, but I don't trust the Catholic Church, and I have good reason.
The lay people are helping
with kids.
The wolves.
I'm really glad that the Trump administration is saying enough of this. If you want to do charity, fine, you do it. But we're not going to support after all the fraud, waste, and abuse. And then they try to say they're just helping refugees. Well, hold it.
You should learn how to read it.
Refugees have a special status. They have to be vetted, and you have to show that they were being persecuted in some ways. But don't tell me that all those millions of people who were trafficked throughout the United States by Catholic charities were vetted refugees. No way.
Why? But why? I mean, I don't care if the Catholic Church wants to do charitable acts of charity. That's fine. Let them do it. But why is $125 million of taxpayer money going to Kupich in the Archdiocese of Chicago?
Total fraud, waste, and abuse.
Yeah. Why?
And if they were investigated, I think you'd have to end up putting half of them in jail for fraud.
Yeah. Vatican defends blessing of same-sex couples after bishops pushback. This is the legacy of Pope Francis. I'm winding down. In the Pacific, a dumping ground for priests accused or convicted of abuse. I think this was in East Timor, which was an absolute mess. Pope Francis defends same-sex blessing and dismisses retirement rumors in new memoir. He doubled down because there are actually traditional Catholics or Pope planers.
Because that blessing's done by the Holy Spirit, right? The Holy Spirit intercedes all blessings.
This guy is so annoying.
Why is Supreme need this? Supreme, did you mute yourself?
I actually blocked
to this
them
day.
instead of muting them. So he was joining back and forth, and I was having my cursor over the mute button, and I actually blocked him. But anyway, I just banned him, so he doesn't come back and forth.
Say that the Vatican never authorized the blessing of gay couples. Auxiliary Bishop Shepard supports demand for LGBT constitutional amendment. Winding down here. I really thought this was an interesting picture. Timothy Radcliffe, who's probably one of the most vile people on earth, he's a hardcore LGBT rights advocate and has called homosexual sex Eucharistic and all this stuff. He's really off the wall. So here he is speaking at the Vatican. I recognize Bishop Barron right here, and I think this is O'Malley here, but this picture strikes me as so strange that this is the kind of atmosphere that they tolerate there, where just complete whack jobs can get up and speak. I would never be there in the first place, but if I was, I'd get up and walk out. That was my last picture. James Martin, I think he's one of the legacies of Pope Francis. And I chose this one as the last picture because I noticed something in this photograph. This is from Vatican News. I noticed something in this photograph that I don't think
this is really crazy. Okay.
And this was just taken recently, I think just before his hospitalization. And it's this right here. Do you recognize that, Gene?
The painting on the wall.
Right here? It's an artwork by Father Rupnik.
Wow.
So he's still got it in his personal quarters next to his wheelchair. And you know who Father Rupnik is.
Of course, who raped over 20 nuns and forced them to drink the
What
semen
is
out of the
that? Is that like an elbow?
I have no idea. Okay, so you just talked over it, but you just missed it. So
someone laying down.
So this painting, right? So this is a recent photo of Pope Francis in his apartment. Okay, this painting is a painting that was painted by Father Rupnik. You know who Father Rupnik is?
No, listen.
Supreme?
I forget.
Wait, hold on. The person
Okay. All right. So Supreme, you don't know who Father Rupnik is, right? Father Rupnik gifted this painting to Pope Francis, okay? And Father Golmulka is going to tell you exactly who Father Rupnik is, and we can like look it up after. This is another famous case that happened like about a year and a half ago.
No.
Oh, wow.
Right here. It's an artwork by Father Rupnik.
Wow.
So he still got it in his personal quarters, next to his wheelchair. And you know who Father Rupnik is.
Of course, you know, who raped over 20 nuns and forced them to drink his semen out of a chalice. And
Did you get that, Supreme? So Father Rupnik has been prosecuted for raping 20 nuns in the convent. And not only did that, he forced them to drink his semen out of the chalice. And he's been criminally prosecuted for this. And it became a scandal because Pope Francis is on good terms with Rupnik. Father Rupnik is a Jesuit. He's a Jesuit priest who's been convicted of raping 20 nuns, right? And doing, furthermore, disgusting sacrilegious stuff of forcing them to drink his semen out of a chalice, out of the same cup that is used for the Eucharist, right? He basically cummed inside of the chalice and then he forced the nuns to drink it. So and he gave this painting to Pope Francis. And Pope Francis still has this painting on his freaking wall.
His most cherished possession.
When I was younger,
dude,
I studied this type of stuff, like in the occult, in the OTO, and Aleister Crowley's.
No, what I'm saying is that if I'm the Pope, if let's say I'm the Pope, okay, and this priest gave me like a painting, okay, and then I find out later that this guy was freaking a molester and he raped people, you know what I mean, and he did this. Do you think Do you think I'm gonna keep his fucking painting on my wall?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably call for like an exorcism of every location that painting has been in, and like exercise the painting and then burn it.
Precisely, but look what Pope Francis does. He just leaves it on the wall. He doesn't care.
Keeps it on
maybe it's dementia. He doesn't know.
He takes it.
Yeah. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. What if? Whataboutism? Whataboutism? Who cares?
How can any Catholic woman want to be a nun knowing that the Pope and the bishops and the cardinals are defending people like Rupnik, who raped
Irish
all
Catholic
these
women
women and then forced them to drink his semen out of a chalice? I mean, a woman, in my mind, who wants to be part of that organization, to me, has to be mentally ill.
Yeah, I know some other pre-sex abuse survivors noticed that.
Yeah, so Catholic, if you still want to defend Pope Francis and just say, oh, maybe he has dementia, maybe you're Catholic. You know what? I think you might be mentally ill. Catholic, you're just mentally ill.
As well, that
I didn't want to defend him. I just said
no. I mean, yeah, but whatever. You're mentally ill.
It says 1,000 words in that one.
Passions and life.
I would think does. Okay, I kept you long enough. What? I mean, my opinion is that the legacy of Pope Francis is gays and groomers. What's yours?
Well, no, really. I mean, he has been such a disaster. But again, most people have to recognize, Joseph, that he's only one of many. I mean, if you go back again to the time of the Reformation, if you consider how many people like yourself have left the Catholic Church, you're part of people like Martin Luther. Remember, Martin Luther was excommunicated by Pope Leo X, who suffered from an anal fistula from having too much gay sex, and then later on.
Did you guys hear this? So remember, Des, remember earlier when you were like, yo, we needed another Reformation, and I was like, dude, look at Pope Julius II, but Pope Leo X, right, who was the guy who excommunicated Martin Luther, just like this priest says, right? Pope Leo X suffered from a prolapsed anus. Why did Pope Leo have a prolapsed anus? Anal fistula. Yeah, what do you think anal fistula is, right? And this was well known and documented. Pope Leo X.
Is that really what it's called?
Yeah, I'm reading about Zwingli, the guy who was the leader of the Protestant Reformation
No,
in
I'm talking.
Switzerland.
So Pope Leo the Tenth is the guy who
No, I know.
excommunicated. Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying. Yeah, this is just another topic. Yeah.
He had an anal fistula, dude. Disgusting.
Was followed years later by, Julius III, who again
Oh, it was
had
Julius III. My bad.
a
old was he?
15-year-old lover whom he made a cardinal at the age of 17. So what Francis has been accused of doing in Argentina with sex involving Jesuit novices and covering up all this abuse, including people like McCarrick and others, and etc. He's no different than a lot of these other, popes in the past who were equally as bad, who also were responsible for millions of people leaving the Catholic Church. When you hear about the Protestant Reformation, they often talk about, how people were scandalized because of the selling of indulgences. But tell me how many times you hear church historians talk about how people like Luther and Zwingli and Calvin were very much upset with the fact that they, as straight men, had to work for people like, Leo and Julius, who were having sex with all these boys.
Yeah. And that, I mean, I took a deep dive in this recently, and that it wasn't anything new by the time the Reformation came around, because 500 years previously, Peter Damian was screaming about it, and it was buried. They essentially buried it.
Absolutely. No, it really goes back even before then. Even if you pull up a video with Tom Doyle, my friend, Father Tom Doyle, who O'Brien got rid of at the same time he got rid of me.
Oh, boy.
Tom Doyle will in one of his videos talks about how homosexuality amongst the clergy was identified as early as the Council of Elvira in the 4th century in Spain.
That's right. In the West, yeah, it was definitely a problem. I have one last question for you, and I'll let you go. I've noticed online, since it looks like, Pope Francis is about to, get his eternal reward. So a lot of Catholics, especially on Twitter, are speculating about the next Pope. And, because of my past as a traditional Catholic, I still follow a bunch of them. And they seem to think that the next Pope will be like a Pope Pius XIII, and is going to, or a Cardinal Sarah, who's going to clean the church up and return it to some sort of pre-Vatican II state. And I think it's kind of sad that they think that, because if you look at who will be in the next conclave, and most of the voting cardinals were chosen by Francis. So, they are like-minded as him. So, what I know you can't tell the future, but what do you think about maybe the next Pope?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. The first thing that came to my mind was, again, how many like-minded cardinals Francis has appointed. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Secondly, when you look at the alternative, you see that it's going to be very difficult unless the only thing I think can change that is if the media, and they won't do this won't happen. This is just asking too much of the media. If the media tomorrow were to come out and show what Francis' life has really been all about, as we've discussed here, right? If they show and they bring forth, people that he abused in Argentina, who were former Jesuit novices, if they show all these people whose abuse he covered up, then all these other like-minded cardinals who've been doing the same thing might say, whoops, I don't want to get caught like he got caught before he died. So they may not be as inclined to say, oh, I'll be the next Pope, because they don't want to be exposed. But you see, I think most of those people like Fernandez and Supich and McElroy and Tobin, and all the others.
99,
yeah,
baby.
with his boyfriend, right? I think they're going to be more inclined, I'll accept the nomination, because the media the legacy media and Catholic news services and Catholic, all these agencies are going to cover up for me, just like they covered up for Francis. And I would bet that Nicole Winfield from the Associated Press will be right there with her microphone to interview the first pope and making this guy look like a saint.
Yeah. So McElroy is eligible to be in the next conclave.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow. See, that's a scandal in and of itself. And it seems like the only thing that's sort of preventing the Catholic Church from completely jumping the shark is the Africans, probably.
Right. But see, right now, here's the thing, though. We always used to say in Rome, it's hard to find an African to become a bishop because it's hard to find an African who doesn't have children.
Wow.
In other words, not to find an African who hasn't had sex with women, but to find actually one who hasn't already begotten children. So the real problem is celibacy, because you have the gay guys sleeping with other gay guys, and then you also have the straight bishops and priests sleeping with women. No one wants to admit that celibacy, which was imposed in the 12th century, the First and Second Lateran Council, has never been followed. I mean, how could you have all those gay bishops in the 16th century, having all this sex?
16th century.
When, 500 years earlier, celibacy was imposed.
Wow.
And if you look too, at not only of the gay popes during that century, but if you look at the straight popes during that same century, you're going to find a lot of them also had all kind of girlfriends and all kind of children.
Wow. Well, I wish all my Catholic brothers and sisters the best. Don't hope for a savior, because God has already given us our savior, and that's Jesus Christ. So stop looking to man. That's my message. Thank you.
Amen.
All right.
Die.
It makes you angry. All right.
It just keeps happening.
I was raised that the false church was going to come out of the Catholic Church.
So Pope Leo X, right? He was made cardinal at the age of 13. Okay. And this is his story. Was it?
Well, was it some royal family pushed the church to make him cardinal?
Yeah, he was part of the Medici's.
Gotcha.
So
the popes. Popes were known for making.
So he was made cardinal at 13. Okay. His family lost power in Florence at the start of the Italian Wars. Only in 1512, when the Medici regime was restored, did his star rise. Okay. So Giovanni was rewarded in papal election that followed Julius II's death in 1513. In agony with an anal fistula, he needed to be carried into the Vatican on a sedan chair and was operated on during the conclave. So the question is, where did he get that anal fistula from? Obvious, right? Because he was having a bunch of gay sex. So he was made cardinal when he was 13. So he was getting passed around. Does that make sense? And then he had right, and then he basically had a prolapse.
This is how you pause after you say it.
And then he basically had a prolapse butthole. And they had to. But here's the thing: they had to operate on him during the conclave, right, because of his prolapse butthole. And then, but maybe out of sympathy for his discomfort, or perhaps because they thought his ailments precluded a long pontificate, the other cardinals surprised many by voting for him. So he had to get operated on for having a prolapse butthole because he was getting passed around by the other cardinals as basically a cum dumpster. And then they elected him pope because they felt sorry for him. This is what I'm saying. Like, it's always been like this at the Vatican.
Yeah, we're close.
And then when he became pope, right? Look, Leo took a particular interest in a 16-year-old boy, Marcantonio Flaminio, whom he tried to shower with gifts. The boy's father would have none of it.
So
So
this dad knows
so the boy's
weird
father
shit is
already
going
knew what
on.
was going on. Yeah.
That's crazy.
But Leo was not so diligent with his liturgical duties. Why should he have been when he had not yet been consecrated a priest, let alone bishop, when he became pope? So just to put the nail in the coffin, Leo the
He
Tenth,
wasn't even a Christian.
right? Leo the Tenth was never a priest or a bishop when he was made cardinal, even before he was made a pope. So he was made cardinal at 13, right? Why do you think they made him a cardinal?
This is weird, dude.
Now
So
you
you
get,
mean to tell me
it's
that
incestuous.
there was somebody there over shore
shit.
being like, I'm sorry, baby. Listen, I'll make you a cardinal, okay? Will that make you feel better? Yes.
That's pretty. Now you get. Yep. That's what I'm trying to say. This twink culture has always been part of the Catholic priesthood. Unfortunately,
These are like families. These are like, what are these, like royal families?
Yeah. So I mean that's all part of it as
families. They're pagan families.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is. They're like it's like either.
Leo the Tenth had a pet elephant, and he was also the first pope to kill a cardinal.
Oh.
Like this is how gay it gets. Like this is like the I mean the 1500s was like the era of the pornocracy.
Zwingli died as a clergy. And I'm tracing his teachings right now.
So,
yay!
I'm about to canonize all the. About to canonize my own apostolic succession. The Protestant Reformation leaders.
So, knowing like the history of how bad it was during the Renaissance period, right? My question is how could any even Protestant be okay with what's coming out of the Vatican today, where they're trying to like normalize homosexuality? When you look at the period of Reformation, this was the height of homosexual debauchery with the papacy.
High church Protestants aren't Protestants from the Reformation.
Yeah. No, I get that.
That's more. I guess it's more Baptist nowadays.
The fact that you have Catholics now that are supporting this Homo-Heresy at the Vatican, that shouldn't be as surprising as the rest of the world who should be aware of this dark history of Catholicism, still in support of it. Yeah. They're praising the Pope for being more open to homosexuality. When you actually look at the history of like these Reformation popes, they were pretty gay. So let's look at Pope Julius III, who came after Leo.
Mostly the non-denomination.
How come Irish and Fight don't want to hear this?
You said what?
How come Irish and Fight don't want to hear this ever?
Why
is their faith so weak that they can't bear to look at the evil?
She calls him her holy and blessed father, bro. Like, what are you talking about?
So this is from the Gay, Lesbian, Bi, Trans, Q archive, okay? So this is a pro-LGBT website, right? Pope Julius III created one of the most notorious homosexual scandals in the history of the papacy. He was a protege of Julius II, himself a sodomite covered with shameful ulcers. According to the schismatic council of Pisa convened by his enemies, the Holy Roman Emperor, blah, blah, blah. Julius III was, okay, got it. He was a skilled expert in canon law, blah, 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 blah. Caused a major scandal by becoming infatuated with a 15-year-old beggar boy named Incenso, whom he first saw fighting off an attack by a pet ape in 1548. He appointed this unprepossessing, rude, ill-mannered street urchin to the post of cathedral provost, which won him the sobriquet Il Provenistino. Interesting. So he turned him into a gay twink at the Vatican.
And like the never mind. I'm not reading.
See,
I'm opposed to
in 1550, when Julius became pope, he had his brother adopt Innocenzo, and over the vehement protests from other church leaders, he not only named him a cardinal, but gave him a responsible administrative position as his chief diplomatic and political agent, a task for which he was entirely incompetent. Roman satire called the ill-favored boy Julius's Ganymede. And the Venetian ambassador reported that Innocenzo shared the Pope's bedroom and bed. So that's what I'm saying. McCarrick is just this shit has always been there. That's what I'm saying, and you have to get rid of it. Huh?
As may be imagined, Protestant partisans seized on this succulent scandal.
Yeah,
which became a staple for anti-papal. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty bad, but I mean, I heard the Diddy tape, and I can only imagine.
Wait, there's a Diddy tape out?
Yeah, there's a Diddy tape where
No,
it's just an. No, there is. There's an audio clip. The audio
Isn't
clip's
next
real.
pope
with the
Diddy?
dude, some dude moaning. He's like smacking. Some dude.
Why you running? Why you running?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's what
it
Diddy was
not
saying.
good.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
yeah. I can't, it's like a minute long. Well,
Bro, at this
well,
pace,
that's
the
what
next
you gotta.
pope will be Diddy, bro.
Yeah.
Fat lesbian, black.
All I'm saying is it's we watched the whole thing on what's happening with Pope Francis and like the church and all the gay normalization. But it's been worse. That's all I have to say.
Diddy's still in prison, by the way.
So if people don't think it could get worse from what we have with Pope Francis right now, dude, like you don't even know.
It's gonna get worse.
It's gonna get worse.
It's gonna go back to that type of shit.
Yeah.
But on social media.
Yeah, but on social media.
The next scandal on social media.
So apparently, I guess what it's got to take is like a really big scandal to come out for people to be enraged, for the laity to, force the church to make a change.
It just needs to. It's gonna be a generation of scandals.
Because they do protest. Like when the whole orgy thing happened, you saw them outside the Vatican protesting. I mean, there's that, yeah.
I think protest is controlled opposition.